Politics is just so ridiculous in my country. We get angry over the most ridiculous things. I remember when Doctor Who, when Doctor Who suddenly turned into a woman. There, there were literally people petitioning the government to make Doctor Who a man. I kid you not. There were men literally complaining to the point that they petitioned the government to take away the BBC's license over Jodie Whittaker.
I feel like someone just needs to like look at all British people in the face and be like, no one cares about this. No one cares about Doctor Who. You need to stop.
No one gives a shit.
Stop. No one cares about Harry Potter. Just stop. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, Doctor Who is not famous, the Doctor Who is so famous for rescuing the universe with his cock. That's what he's famous for, right? Yeah. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Simply Jocelyn. I have with me today a very special guest, the winner of this year's what was the award again? I'm sorry. Why Not Cam Awards 2021? That was it. Yes, Cam Star of the Year. So There we go. And also, aim and nemesis of one of the most respected news organizations in the world.
I think that's the UK take on it right now. Here in the United States and the Netherlands, no one gives a fuck.
No one really cares about.
Oh, is it okay to swear on here?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. I don't want to get you demonetized.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I get no money on my channel whatsoever. Okay. I get $2 from one Patreon on my Patreon. But the thing is, I just enjoy doing this.
You're gonna do it either way.
Either way, yeah. And I think reviewing films and also activism on the in the trans community to me is very important. So and those are the two subjects I'm here to interview you about. I mean, you've been in the industry for a while now. What got you started?
So I'm from a really small town named Holland. It's in the United States though, but it's extremely Dutch, very small, and very conservative. If you know about like United States politics, if you know who Betsy DeVos is.
Oh, I've been here for 15 years. I'm pretty much similar.
Okay.
My first experience was in a small town in Pennsylvania, so I get it.
Okay. So very like far right conservative. So when I graduated high school, it was in the middle of the recession in Michigan, and there were no jobs anywhere essentially.
Oh God, yeah.
No matter what you were trying to do. So being a trans woman during this, it was like, okay, I have no prior job experience because I just graduated high school. I'm like kind of going to college, not really putting that much into it. I was playing in bands and that was really my passion. So I was just like running out of money and just like didn't have really anything. So I was like, okay, I can look into camming. My partner at the time was like, let's start camming. I think they were more doing it because they were from a more privileged situation. So I think they were more doing it as like a sexually experimental thing. So I started doing it, and I was making way more money. So not only was I able to pay my rent and like get food and everything, I was able to like book some cooler bands to come in where I'm like, oh, cool, I have extra money now and I don't have to really rely on booking shows or money from playing in bands and all that stuff. So after I was camping for a while, I found stuff like Sasha Grey and Stoya and the queer porn movement in San Francisco. And I was just like, oh, wow, sex work can be something more than just kind of a transactional thing to survive. Because that's definitely kind of my intro to camming, was definitely just trying to make enough money to have money for food and rent and just really survival. So I ended up seeing Jisley speak at a local college near where I lived. I was actually living on the college campus at the time. I wasn't a student though, all my friends were, so I was just like, oh yeah, I'll move in with you guys. So it was like being a cam girl at this college, Grand Valley State in Allendale, Michigan. Shout out Lakers. So I saw Jisley speak there and watched their porn, and I was like, oh wow, and I got to meet them. And shortly after, I got booked for Crash Pad series. So I came out here the first time, first experience shooting, little bit scary just because it's a big step to be doing porn with your friends at home and then getting on a plane and being on a set with people who like won awards and all that sort of like big stuff. So then I came back out here for Pride, and I had just like such a great time and shot so much cool stuff. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna move to California for 6 months and see what happens. And then stuff just kind of kept going. I worked at I don't know if you know much about kink.com, how they owned a castle.
Yeah.
I worked in that castle for like
Oh.
9 months.
I always confuse my English friends every time I post a picture up there. Say, do you recognize this place? And they always think it's Buckingham Palace or
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely a dungeon. I'll give you that much.
It was the weirdest thing because here we're obviously in the middle of Silicon Valley and San Francisco, and there's all these tech companies.
Yeah.
So it ran like a Silicon Valley company inside, that's a porn studio inside a castle. It was just like one of the most strange, bizarre things because they'd also let you sleep there. There was a gym there. There was a chef there, so you didn't have to leave. So it was really trying to motivate you to work at all times.
Oh, wow.
So,
so there's quite literally a castle then,
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like the history of that building is really, really deep. Like there's been heavyweight fights in like the 20s and 30s there. Most of the first Star Wars was shot in there. Just like so many wild things. It's super haunted.
Oh, I'm gonna have to visit, just for that alone.
Yeah, it's abandoned right now though.
They
abandoned, I think,
down,
for 6 years.
Yeah.
They some very big mismanagement, but so yeah, I originally came out here because I started working as a cam performer for Kink Live, and my own issues there were they kind of were hiring systematically, where it was like, okay, we're gonna hire 3 blonde girls, we're gonna hire 3 brunettes, 3 trans women. So I was one of the trans women, and it was really just maybe they weren't doing enough research, because I got there and they're like, oh, you're a dom, right? And you're gonna do all this stuff for our site. I'm like, no, I'm a sub. I told you guys that. So I really didn't have any opportunities to get any more work there other than just camming and cameos in 1 or 2 things. So I got involved with Trouble Films in the East Bay, and we started making stuff on our own immediately after, essentially. And that's been like the last 8 years of my life, just continuously making queer porn in the East Bay.
Well, but there we are. You've certainly come a long way in the industry. Also,
it's been a minute.
Also quite the activist within the industry as well, I've noticed, especially, one thing I noticed when I was kind of making my applications was not just the transphobic slurs, but the expectations of trans performers, for example. I remember I went through a medical condition, and they were expecting me to do certain things that I couldn't do at the time. And the only response I got was, it's kind of like, so what? You know what I'm saying? So from what I understand, you've literally been quite the voice of reason when it comes to trans inclusivity in the porn industry. Especially, you've made some high roads as well. I think, was it Pornhub, for example, has kind of changed its whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like everywhere. So when I first got into this industry, the first award show I went to, I shit you not, was called the Tranny Awards.
Oh my God.
Right? So I'm like coming from the queer porn world. So it's like, just like hang out with queer friends, and like you just like it's just normal, right?
Yeah.
So then I go to this place where it's like all these like cis men with all these straight trans women, which good for you being straight, but I'm very much a lesbian. So my entire world has always been just being around like lesbian circles, essentially, as an adult.
Same.
Yeah. So I like go, it's like all these like really young, hot trans women who are like 20 to maybe 30. I'm just like, wow, these girls are all babes, but they're all like super straight. And then there was like these like creepy older men like making profits off calling them she-males and trannies and shit. I'm just like, this shit's fucked up. So
I mean, I noticed that it's kind of weird because especially with Groovy, which we'll get to in a minute, where they say they are the pioneer of transgender porn, and we're like, but what your industry is built on and is still continuing to build on doesn't denote any real pioneering within that inclusivity. So
I'm from a small town, as I said earlier. I'm
Yes.
from a really small Dutch town of like 30,000 people. Even though it's conservative, it's in the Midwest. So there's like a lot of politeness and just kind of general good assumptions of people. So I was in this whole world and I was like, okay, like my favorite performers are people like Sasha Grey and Stoya who've been super outspoken. I'm like, oh, like people get where I'm coming from. So I like started talking about this stuff and I just got attacked by like everyone in the trans porn world.
Oh God,
So I
yeah.
got blacklisted by like everyone because I'm like, hey, can we not? So then I was like on a flight from, I think it was San Francisco to New York for something. And I was just like, oh, there's Wi-Fi on this flight. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should just like start a change.org petition about it. So I did it at like 2 a.m. on a JetBlue flight, like over Iowa or something. And then like it just kind of blew up that week.
Yeah,
And it
you
just
got
kind of went everywhere.
2,000 signatures on that petition, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if anything's going to piss off Stephen, there's probably going to be that kind of attention. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I noticed that there was one Twitter when they were talking about who's the best trans. I'm not going to use the expletive here, but who's the best transgender performer you know? And somebody mentioned you, to which Stephen Gruby literally just lolled at the suggestion. You've really gotten under his skin.
Yeah.
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 So what is that story? You know, there's obviously some history there.
I it's just as easy as me being like, hey, I don't like how you're doing this company. It's just exploitative. And then him being like, fuck you. And I'm like, yeah, like basically, I don't know. I don't think it's just like what I represent in this industry and who I am is just my whole goal, especially early on, was like, hey, I want to be the person far out there and being like, hey, we need to remove this, this, and this. And I feel like I just needed to do that. And I feel like that's just going to be the natural reaction of these industry heads to be like, no, we can't do this. Chelsea's going to destroy porn. It's just like ridiculous. Also, like, I think I've been very influential in porn. I don't think I'm the best trans porn performer. I think right now I think ever it's either Aubrey Cade or Bailey J. Just what they did and how they did so consistently.
Yeah.
I could not give more props to them, but I think it's cool I've been able to do these things and win all these awards and stuff, but I feel like my real reasons for getting into this industry were so much in the activism and just hoping that it's in a more progressive place than where I started. And I just think if you look at the list of who's getting nominated for AVNs and names of the movies, it's just completely night and day since I got in it, you know?
I mean, to me, you know, I mean, looking at your history, you more or less become the Nina Hartley of the trans porn industry. You know, you're very much you're very much sex positive with regards to that, but also at the same time, you're very much in agreement that trans women as a whole should also have as much control over their content as female porn stars should be allowed. And one thing I noticed in your previous interview with I'm sorry, the name escapes me, but it was on YouTube. I'll put the link in.
Katie, I think.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
She's great.
And you were saying you were basically explaining how little control trans performers actually have over the content that they would like to perform. You know, I mean, there's a certain expectation from the trans community to do certain acts rather than actually do certain acts that actually come more natural to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that influence for me is from people like Drew DeVoe, who was like the first trans woman to really do lesbian porn. Toby Hillmeyer, who, do you know her work?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's just like DIY trans stuff completely on your own terms and just like not giving a fuck if cis men are into it. And I love that.
Oh God, like, I love that. Yeah.
Like aesthetically, her porn and mine are very different. Like just the flow of it's very different. But like that, I've gotten to spend both time with Drew and Toby, like in a real context, and be able to talk about kind of all this shit that gets thrown at you as like a queer trans woman in porn, because there's like truly just not many of us who kind of took up that thing. So as much as I feel like I'm mostly influenced by cis performers, because I don't have really many trans performers who I look up to in like the regular trans porn world.
Yeah.
Like the people I looked up to were like Drew and Toby, who were totally just doing something completely out of what people would consider trans porn, you know? So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from with all of this, where when I first started working with companies like Groovy or other trans porn sites, I wasn't really like, oh wow, this is so great, because I'm just like, I don't really know this site. I don't really care about it. Like the stuff I cared about was like alt porn, and like saw like when I met Storia, she knew my name. I was just like,
yeah, I admit I'm still kind of like an 80s girl when it comes to my porn. I don't know why. It's probably that aesthetic. I guess I just like the fact that there were stories, no matter how bad they were. I kind of like, there's a story here.
There's arguably though now, like the narrative porn is so like high level, like it's so high production value. So if you're into storylines, you should definitely look into like the stuff that Cade & Cross is doing right now. And
I will, yeah.
Why am I blanking on their name? I don't know.
I mean,
they're a lesbian director. Oh my god. It'll come to me.
I do stand-up comedian. I did a comedy skit of my thing, and I said I watch porn, you know, just as a joke, and some sisters went, "Oh, you watch porn? What a surprise!" And I said, "Yeah, I watch porn. Yeah, so what, you know? So yeah, of course I'm interested in this. I got people recommending Pirates to me for, you know.
I mean, that's like such an iconic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I think that's the best top 50 porn of all time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, though, it's kind of like getting that control. And I told you about my experiences with that. You know, it's kind of like, we want you to perform this way, and it, you know, and health wise for me at the time, it was practically impossible to even consider that, you know. But it's almost like, and is it me, or is it kind of like the guys who run this industry and take part in this industry are basically cis guys, cis straight guys who just want to experiment with that kind of adventure? Is that the experience you have with that?
I feel like the industry has changed a lot. I think when I first got into it, it was definitely like that, kind of more in like specifically the trans world. Like, I don't know, it just felt so sketchy and just like weird to me that all these companies are only going by like cis men, and all the directors were cis men. Like, it was just a very strange thing. But I feel like since probably 2017, there's been more platforms for performers to post on their own. So you don't have to work for a studio anymore. You really don't have to do that. So there's so much more collaboration. And I feel like that's also brought in directors who are now coming from a more artistic perspective, like the stuff Ricky Greenwood's been doing with Mile High, for not only like their trans stuff, their lesbian stuff. Like, I think it's just like such a great level of porn right now is being made. And I think there's so much stuff happening with like Cade & Cross doing deeper. Like, I think we're in a really good era of porn with like really good and interesting people making it, who are winning the awards and getting nominated for all this stuff. So I think it's like all going in a really good direction. But also, even just like in the trans world, if you look what Aubrey Cate's doing right now, is like the top trans performer in the game right now. She's doing so much crossover work with mainstream companies. And I feel like that's always kind of been my thing of like, I don't care if it's me. I just want whoever that girl is to be able to cross over and do all these things and not have her career limited, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I've been able to do some really cool stuff, but like my whole thing of inclusion wasn't just like, I want to get this and this and this. Like, I just wanted it to be more inclusive so I can see the people around me as well as myself get some cooler opportunities we wouldn't have gotten before.
Yeah. Speaking of the porn industry and probably like I said, respectable news agencies, you had uh, quite a quite a boost in reputation, at least in Britain recently,
Yeah.
for an interview that you gave, but was never published, which is a very interesting way of looking at it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that is really funny to think about.
yeah, I mean, first of all, what was your reaction to the BBC article as a whole? I think it's probably the.
Um, when I did the interview, it was super uncomfortable.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, they really tried to bait me. But I've done so many interviews, like porn related, especially early in my career, where it would be not even like a bad interviewer, but they would basically just be like, tell us why your porn is good and why mainstream porn is bad. And I'm like, I don't want to trash any other thing in porn, because I think in mainstream porn, there's some really good mainstream porn. I think there's bad mainstream porn,
Yeah.
just like any other medium. So I felt very prepared for that during that. And I felt very uncomfortable after. Being from the Midwest, I felt so uncomfortable I was going to message her, but then I was like, oh no, she's just doing her job. I don't want to like make her job any more difficult. Just that whole like politeness thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this was September of last year, 2020. So I just assumed, because it was a video interview, so I was like, okay, maybe it like aired on TV in the UK and no one cared, or I don't know, something happened. Maybe it didn't get released. So then the article happened, and I skimmed through it the first time. I'm like, this is gonna be bad. I knew it was, but then I'm like, oh, my name's not in it. That's terrific. I saw Lily Cade. I'm like, oh shit, they're a
And
terrible person. But
you warned them about her, if I remember correctly. You actually
yes,
there
yeah,
so you were aware that she was already in the interview
no,
already in the you weren't
no.
so how did that come about?
I just, when I saw it, I saw that Lily Cade was in the interview.
Mm.
And then even then I was like, okay, I'm gonna let this blow over. I'm like, I'm happy I'm not involved in this toxic bullshit, because I'm like, if they quoted me wrong, it could look like I'm a turf or some shit. I don't want to do that. I'm like possibly
Yeah,
upset like all these trans women and stuff. So I'm like, okay,
yeah, because
it's fine. It's gonna pass.
because the horrifying thing is that they said that your interview wasn't relevant, and considering that you mentioned her history, I would have considered that very relevant
But
to the piece.
when I read it, I literally said, I don't know if I said on Twitter or whatever app, but I was like, they didn't use it because I didn't take their bait. They viewed it as not relevant to them. I said that before they came out about that. So I didn't like come out and be like, okay, I was interviewed by them, blah, 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 blah. Here's my receipts and all this stuff,
No,
until Lily Cade came out with a terrorist manifesto out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, I remember you tweeted me. You literally tweeted me about it when I was talking. I was talking about the BBC article. And then you tweeted me saying, "Have you read Lily Cade's thing?" I said, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, so like there was like trans inclusion drama with Lily Cade and I back in like 2014, and then she basically unleashed all these turfs to harass me for like 5 months straight. Super horrific. I have like trauma from it. I had to like go to therapy over and like get through that, but it would keep popping up every maybe like 4 or 5 months. I get some occasional bullshit from it. But yeah, she got ran out of the porn industry because she like committed multiple like assaults and stuff in bathrooms at industry events, kind of all over the world. I know it's happened in Europe. I know it happened in the United States. So I knew like they were like already kind of on some weird shit, but like I didn't think they were gonna go like full QAnon and be like, I committed voting fraud for Joe Biden, gay marriage is wrong, which they're gay married. Just imagine being gay married to someone who said gay marriage is the worst thing that happened.
Her wife was literally jumping to her defense, and I'm like, wait, what? Okay.
So
it's like trying. It's like I almost get the impression it's like we're the good gays, and we have that problem with people like Blair White and Rose of Dawn. We're the good trans. Nobody else is as good as we are. So we can be trans, but nobody else can be considered trans. You know what I'm saying? And that's it just kind of like horrified me. So Were you directly involved with Lily Cade in any way, or is it just the harassment?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so she followed me on social media, right?
Uh-huh.
Then she also went to a party I hosted. That was a gay marriage based party.
Wait, you hosted and she showed up?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That was a completely queer and trans party, but they went because it was Pride during SF. So yeah, and then like we followed each other. I thought we were cool until like all this happened, until I was like, hey, that's like a little bit transphobic. And they're like, no, penis is allowed and shit like that. So it's just like really truly out of nowhere where it was like, oh, I thought you were a mutual friend because we worked for the same companies. They shot trans women for other things, but they were just like, trans women can't shoot for lesbian sites. It's not allowed. Penises can't be there. And it's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
And
I
she was
had
even like, oh, I'll shoot you for other companies. We just can't label it as lesbian. And I'm like, that's kind of sketchy.
yeah, I had this conversation. I mean, I had this interview on the previous interview before this, and we were talking about how being lesbian was not about the genitals; it was about the mutual attraction, And this concept that trans women can't do lesbian porn, I think is kind of outdated at this point.
Yeah, it's literally been my entire career. I've literally only shot one scene with a man in like 4 or 5 years. And I've had my entire like career just going through this time. So
Yeah, I suppose as some of my friends told me, they've got to do it at least once just to get, just to get the foot in the door, So, but it is a very male dominated industry, which is not an excuse, but I suppose that's basically kind of what you're up against.
I don't know if it is though.
Well,
I feel like
it was. I'm kind of probably old.
yeah, I guess the trans porn in the world, old trans porn was, but like now it's essentially performers run everything. So
Well,
like
yeah,
there's still some
OnlyFans.
studios that exist, but like stuff like mini vids and clips for sale, it's just like a very whole different world now where like the top director right now is Caden Cross, who's a former performer who's a cis woman. So I feel like stuff has just changed so much that it's not really dominated by these men. And if there are men in charge, they're usually now performers who became directors. So I think there's been a really big shift probably over the last like 5 years.
So yeah, I mean, we've discussed obviously the obvious piece, which I wanted to rush through because I think everybody knows the BBC thing. So I kind of want to get more on a personal level with you, especially advice for other people. I mean, yeah, this is a YouTube channel, but I don't shy away from what YouTube doesn't like to hear about. So what would you advise to somebody who won't say once, but is looking to get into the industry? What is your safety tip for it?
Start on your own. Start with the equipment you have. Don't invest too much money into it. Like honestly, start shooting stuff in your bedroom if you have a camera, webcam, anything like that. Upload to a site like MiniVids. Start low level. Start a Twitter for your like porn persona or the company you want to create, anything like that. That's how you start. You should not start by reaching out to people and being like, oh, I want to shoot for this company. If you want money, I guess you can get a little bit that way, but if you really want to build a career, you really need to start completely organically and build up from there, because then you'll have the experience for when you go on a shoot. You're not feeling as nervous because you've done it so many times before. You know the experience of getting ready for a shoot, performing, knowing your body, knowing what headspace you have to get into. I also highly suggest looking into sports psychology. That's really helped me a lot, just because you have to have your body so linked, and just with sex work, whether it's camming or porn, there's gonna be so many ups and downs in your career. And I just think having the mindset and having the tools to be able to manage that's really, really important.
And as a trans, I mean, you've been a trans woman longer than I have. So what?
Yeah, like literally since like I was 12, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a woman's 18. So
yeah. What advice would you give to trans youth and people finally making that step? Is there I mean, is there a door
Yeah, I would just try to find as many resources as you can online. Find things that are like, if you're trying to get on hormones or anything like that, I would look up informed consent clinics. I feel like that's usually the easiest way. There's so much bureaucracy with kind of going the traditional way to get hormones and everything. I think if you can go to informed consent clinic, I think that's definitely the best way. So you can at least get your levels and everything. Yeah, I would just definitely look for all your resources online, because there's tons of trans people. And even if you're in a small area, there's probably some sort of trans organization or trans group or something like that. So you can actually see other people. I didn't ever see I never met another trans woman until I was at least like 3 years in hormones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I just like it just like I just wasn't around any other trans people really early on. So just because there really weren't that many trans organizations, I had to start the first trans organization in my hometown. So they're just like, wasn't really a lot of that. So yeah, I think that's probably some good advice.
Okay, thank you. And then now we're getting onto the bullshit
Okay.
part of the interview. I've decided to do this with almost everybody now. As you probably figured out, we're also a bit of a geek channel. We do a lot of old nostalgia and sci-fi and horror stuff on this channel. So what is your favorite sci-fi or horror movie?
Probably Metropolis.
Oh, Metropolis, one of my favorites too.
Yeah.
What attracts you to that the most? What do you enjoy about that?
I just really like German film.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I stayed there's a lot of industry stuff in Berlin, and I stayed in this German film museum.
Yeah.
It's an Airbnb, but it's also a German film museum.
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit weird situation, but yeah, I took a sci-fi class in high school. I think I was like a junior or sophomore, and we watched that. And one of the assignments was to come up with a soundtrack for it. And that's something I do now so much in my own work, where I just basically strip out all the audio and then just figure out a soundtrack from all the music I have access to. And that's kind of how I make my films now. So
wow,
I feel like that really is kind of full circle, because that's where I feel like I have like the most kind of like screen time at screenings and stuff. I don't know if you know about the Berlin Porn Film Festival, but it's this
I think so, yes.
Yeah, it's like this 5-day festival that literally just takes over Berlin. It's at 4 or 5 different, I think it's at 3 or 4 different theaters, and there's
sounds like my kind of festival.
Yeah, so it's each theater has multiple like screens and stuff, so it's from noon until midnight every single day. It's just straight up just like different porn related screenings all day. People from all over the world are in it. People from all over the world attend it. It's just like one of the coolest things. Also, like every single screening is sold out, which is just such a crazy experience to watch that much porn with like 300, 400 people in these theaters. Yeah, it's a really great experience.
I mean, it's no longer the underground industry we remember it, to be honest with you, is it?
I don't think it ever has been in Berlin, though.
No, I think
Berlin is so
like to pretend it was,
sexual.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like the seedy thing that that people hid from view, but it's actually pretty mainstream.
Particularly in Europe, like Europe, there's porn screenings all the time. It's just kind of a accepted thing there now. Yeah, it's even in countries you wouldn't expect. Like I've done screenings in I did a screening tour in Poland. I did one in the Czech Republic this year. Like it's really kind of all over, even in places you wouldn't really associate with porn.
So how would you react to the I mean, there's obviously a tremendous difference between sexuality in America and sexuality in Europe. You probably noticed that. What kind of a culture effect did that have on you? Was it a culture shock when you went to Europe and suddenly it was a little more open?
I feel like in a lot of ways, especially going to the Netherlands, was the exact opposite for me, because so where I'm from is like a complete mini version of the Netherlands. We have windmills, we have all the houses look the same, everyone's Dutch, everyone has a Dutch last name.
Yeah,
there's a lot less Dutch speakers there, but there's still a little bit. So when I went to the Netherlands, it was like going to a place where sex work was so normalized. it really made me be like, oh, wow, this is actually where I'm from. This makes sense with a huge part of my personality. Also, the politics there are very progressive and like pro refugee and pro sex worker rights and pro, you know, taking care of homeless people and all that stuff. So in a lot of ways, it almost just made me be like, wow, this is where I'm actually from. This actually makes sense. This normalization of sex work should be a thing I feel normally. And I think being from such a conservative place with the same culture, it just made me feel like there was two sides to me, like where I'm from, who I am culturally, all that stuff, and then my job and what I do and what I'm passionate about. And going there really flipped that for me, where I was like, wow, this is actually makes sense why I'm this way and who I am. And this is like literally part of the culture in the Netherlands. So I think really realizing that was really big for me and why I went back to make films. And I was actually planning on moving there before the pandemic for like 6 months to a year, but then COVID happened. So I'm still in the States.
She does this with every interview. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine. No worries at all.
So what would your plans for the future be? Is there any are there any big dreams you're looking to, you know, any real achievements you want to make in your life beyond what you've already achieved? I know.
I feel like this last month has been the craziest month of my life.
I would say, yeah, it's definitely garnered you a lot of attention.
Yeah, so it started with I barely left anywhere to do anything industry related this year. So going to the Why Not Awards, it was like a month ago today, I think. It was the first industry event I went to. So it was like, okay, we're going to this industry thing again, dressing up, doing the red carpet, all that stuff, seeing industry people for the first time. And that was the first award I won in person. So that was like, oh, wow. Shit. Okay.
So proud
this
of you.
Is happening. But what I didn't expect is I knew I had a lot of support back home and like in places I traveled and people who I worked with, but I didn't really realize the range of it and how many people cared. So I feel like I've never had this many people reach out to me in my life, including like my grandma called me and was like, good job, sweetie, for winning.
Oh, wow.
So it was really like everyone in my life reached out to me after that. So I like had this huge positivity for like a few weeks. And then all this BBC stuff played out over 2-3 weeks. And then we had another award show happen that our company got nominated for 10 awards. So it's just like, yeah, it's kind of been nonstop. Also, I had a festival in Germany this month and a festival in San Francisco. So it's been a really busy month. So as far as the future goes, hopefully this whole COVID thing clears out and I can return to traveling Europe and doing the whole festival thing. But truly, like, I'm probably going to keep pursuing this as my top priority, probably for another 5 years, I'm thinking, and just really focusing on continuing doing what I'm doing and making out films. After that, I think my partner and I are probably going to try to have kids. And then I'm eventually going to return back to porn at some point. But I think right now it's just kind of focusing on these next 5 years until I do something else for a little bit. But I think I'm always going to be making porn in some capacity. I just don't know if it's going to be always my top priority, kind of like it has been for the last 10 years, because it's been a lot.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I was a single parent for 18 years, and I'm kind of like, well, she's 18 now. It's no longer my top priority. It was nice to actually do something else.
Yeah, that's
don't get me wrong.
Kind of how I'm feeling.
I love her to bits, but you know, it's kind of like, what am I going to do without all this responsibility? You know?
Yeah, I'm just getting to the point now where I'm like, okay. I'm going to be like mid-30s. I probably want to do that before I'm like 50 or 40 years old, having to run around after a kid. I'm like,
yeah, I did it early. So I'm gonna, I'm nearly in my 50s and I feel like I'm catching up on the 20s.
Yeah, I can't imagine being 50 and being like having to chase after children. I don't think I can.
It's a thing. It's a thing. That's all I can really I mean, it's bad enough chasing after the cats at my age. So there was another question and it has slipped my mind. That was it. If the BBC ever approached you again, would you talk to them?
I don't know.
I know
I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I know nobody's asked you this.
I don't
question,
know.
but, it's just kind of like, because eventually they're going to have to take the article down. Articles like this.
Do they though?
Yeah,
I think it's eventually just going to fade into the background.
It's either going to fade. Well, it's going to fade into the background, but the pressure's just not going to be there. I mean, you got to understand. You've probably seen how angry TERF's getting in Britain. That's why we call it TERF Ireland.
Yes, yeah.
Let me tell you something. The LGBT community is just as aggressive.
So I'm assuming you're from the UK, right?
I am from Scotland. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I guess we know how you voted on the Scottish independence then.
Yeah, I was pretty much let's get the fuck out of here, because
okay, so no offense, don't take this personally. What if we just sink the whole island and just like everyone can just like move to France and like you guys can figure it out?
I wouldn't miss it. If I have to be honest, I wouldn't miss it.
That's great.
That's actually, that's actually my stance on the whole thing. Because when Brexit happened, I was like, and then Donald Trump came along and we're like, and then they went through with Brexit, and I'm like, and then they elected Boris Johnson. Like, it's like America and Britain. They're kind of like, here, hold my beer. I can one up stupidity better than you can.
I feel like the crazy thing about the UK though is it's so much smaller, where it's like, you guys aren't even a big country. Why do you have this much drama?
I know.
Like, just settle down.
I know.
Like, you're fine.
We still think we're an empire. That's the thing. We're still pining over colonies we no longer have. Thank God for thank God that the colonies don't have to put up with us anymore. The only thing, the real war we've ever had was over 2 islands next to Argentina, and that was populated largely by penguins. That was our big thing. That was our big war in the last, before 9/11. It was ridiculous. The
Falkland Islands. Yeah.
And a lot of my friends are Argentinian, so we're like, what the fuck was all that about?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, like, all of Western Europe's so terrible, but I feel like particularly that like you guys are too small to have this much drama.
I just don't understand it.
You never hear anything out of Germany. You never hear like, yeah, Germany's all this drama. Occasionally you do, but it's not to the same level.
The UK, or at least England in particular, I wouldn't say Scotland so much, because poor Sturgeon has literally put up with a lot of shit that she's like this COVID thing. And the thing is, England thinks it's just so important, because we're America's best friend. Therefore, we think we're more important than the rest of Europe. And I'm like, well, politics is just so ridiculous in my country. We get angry over the most ridiculous things. I remember when Doctor Who suddenly turned into a woman. there were literally people petitioning the government to make Doctor Who a man. I kid you not. There were men literally complaining to the point that they petitioned the government to take away the BBC's license over Jodie Whittaker.
I feel like someone just needs to like look at all British people in the face and be like, no one cares about this. No one cares about Doctor Who. You need to stop.
No one gives a shit.
Stop. No one cares about Harry Potter. Just stop. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, Doctor Who is not famous. The Doctor Who is so famous for rescuing the universe with his cock. That's what he's famous for, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but Skins, you talk about Skins on E4 back in the 2000s. I went on podcasts about that.
Oh my god. I still prefer the UK.
That and Grime is the only good 2 things the UK ever did.
I mean, Russell T Davies is I give Russell T Davies a lot of kudos. He literally brought the gay and bi scene to the mainstream without the queer baiting, which I think is probably Disney's problem and Netflix's problem, and everything else is about queer baiting. But Russell T Davies, when he wrote Skins, and also Doctor Who with Jack Harkness, he didn't shy away from making these characters mainstream characters.
The same person who wrote Skins wrote part of Doctor Who.
He rebooted Doctor Who. Russell T Davies was the guy who rebooted Doctor Who.
Huh.
So Doctor Who, the Doctor Who being what it is down to him, and then he quit. And then we had two showrunners, and now he's come back to be a showrunner. So, be interested to see in what direction that goes. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Before we go, which wasn't originally part of the interview, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about queer baiting and the trans and pretty much the LGBT community in the mainstream. What is your take on that? I mean, obviously we're more mainstream in porn than we are in the main industry.
That is true.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, where can you name in media that there's like lesbians in their 20s or 30s that are actively like couples?
Yeah.
There's not very many places. It's like porn, and like I've gotten really into like after the Olympics, I got really into women's sports because the Dutch national soccer team, it was out of the starting 11, 9 were gay.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, wait, where else can you see this much like lesbian visibility? And it's just like not really anywhere. Like I really feel like women's sports and porn are the only two places, because those are the only two places that we accept lesbian women because their bodies are like what's making their career essentially.
Yeah.
Where I feel like even in like pop culture, you never see visible lesbian couples who are in their 30s or 20s.
And sometimes, and sometimes when we do, it's always this kind of like sophomore, highly attractive, hot couple, you know, which is very it's more of a male fantasy than I think is you know, than real representation.
But even that, like, I can't name any couple like that.
No,
though.
I can't.
Like,
no.
Right? And like, I've very gay, try to search out all like the gay stuff. Like, there's just truly not. Like, honestly, if you're naming lesbian couples, you're thinking like Portia de Rossi and Ellen, and they're both like in their 40s and 50s. Like, I mean, you just don't see lesbian visibility at a young age at all.
I like She-Ra, you know, and there was the lesbian married couple in there, but they didn't make it obvious that they were a lesbian married couple, and the gay dad didn't only showed up twice. And then they got the relationship between Catra and She-Ra, which they kissed at the last episode. It seemed like a cop-out that they were kind of, it's the last-minute kiss kind of thing.
Yeah, but even that, it's like a show. Like, there's just none in actual media at all. And I think that's just like such an issue. And I kind of thought about that a few weeks ago, because I started following all these lesbian athletes, because I was like, oh, wow, I can actually see what other gay couples look like who I don't know.
I know.
You know?
I mean, one of the shows I'm working on is an animated show, and animated kids show, and we literally just said, "Hey, the hero's married. They're gay married. They're a lesbian couple. They're married." But one thing I really hate is last minute gay things, you know, in fiction, and that's why again, trans porn, you know, LGBT porn, and sports, like you say, is so much more representative than I mean, this ridiculous. Hype over Loki being gender fluid and bisexual came to nothing, you know, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are like notable like non-binary people, like Miley Cyrus came out as non-binary, Halsey came out as non-binary. Miley is being extremely gay. I don't know if you saw her video with Dua Lipa where she's just like licking Dua Lipa the entire video.
Oh wow, yes, yeah.
Shout out UK.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there is some, but like there's never really any highly visible lesbian couples, and I think that's like a really big thing I think people should be talking about. But I feel like, especially with like this full TERF stuff, people don't really want to talk about actual lesbian visibility. They just want to be like, you can't be a lesbian because this, and I don't know you, but I know. And it's just like never in good faith. And it's these accounts that don't have like names or like faces and all that stuff. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't put too much time into it, except if it's something ridiculous. Someone hit me up today being like, I heard Chelsea Poe was going to have a lawsuit against a company for trans exclusion. And I'm like, I don't think any lawyer is going to take that on.
Where do they get this crap from?
I don't know.
I hear this, I hear that. I'm kind of like, where did you hear this? I get sick and tired. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm on Twitter a lot, and I must admit I'm one of these people that falls into the whole Twitter discourse trap. But
it's all garbage.
Some of the garbage I see in there just make I have 42. I think my block list is up to 48,000 people right now.
Mine, I did this thing, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that you would download this thing and they would block all the people like white supremacist ties automatically.
Yeah, blockchain
to hate groups.
Yeah,
I think I did that. So
yeah, I did that.
If I see someone's blocked, it's usually does it pretty well.
I did that with the LGB Alliance and stuff. But the only turf I haven't blocked so far is probably J.K. Rowling, but that's because whether we like it or not, she's relevant to what I do.
Is she though?
It's kind of an she's
maybe in the UK, but like I think globally.
Well, to me,
if J.K. Rowling walked into a Starbucks, I think no one would recognize
no one would care. No, well, to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like her claims of being threatened, and yet there's. I mean, I'm pretty sure that she has, but she's not actually provided anything. It was a recent stunt where she said, "People doxed me and showed up at my house." I'm kind of like, well, first of all, your address is public knowledge. You're literally a national landmark. And second of all, what scares me is what she's doing is she's putting trans people in danger by literally saying she's in danger when she's not really, and that's why I think that's a relevant piece for me to keep an eye on, because sooner or later somebody's going to get hurt because of something that she said or something that she did. So I got the LGBT Alliance blocked, but I'd pay attention to what they're saying because it does affect some, especially trans youth in the United Kingdom. They're trying to take away a teenager's right to decide whether they should take birth control, for example, because of the puberty blocker controversy. So sadly, I have to pay attention to this because it's literally a part of my job. So
I feel like there's already so much going on with, particularly during these times, during a pandemic, where there's so many, particularly trans women of color who are like homeless and having to survive with sex working, attacked and everything, where I almost feel like this dialogue on whatever someone famous is saying about trans people, whether it's Dave Chappelle or J.K. Rowling or whoever else, I feel like it almost is distracting from
the actual issues, I guess.
Because I feel like those hypotheticals are like very real, and that can obviously create more negative discourse and stuff. But I feel like right now, where everything is, I feel like it's so about survival for like those people who are truly the most marginalized. And that's why I've kind of always gone away from that stuff.
Which is actually, I can't argue that logic at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's kind of where I go with that, where like even like this whole article about all this like obvious like dog whistling bullshit that's like obviously transphobic and stuff. Like I've just always kind of, even being in the center of it, I obviously understand the ramifications it can have and why it's especially horrific for people who are British, who are like, wow, our money is going to this thing that's putting out all this transphobic stuff.
Well, I think
I feel like the whole media stuff though is something I really believed early on, where I really believed if we can have more media inclusion, if we can have more inclusion in TV, if we can have all this, it's gonna be a safer world. And I don't think that actually happened. I think if anything, it's made trans people more visible in a kind of bad way, where I think the most marginalized are getting now outed easier and all this stuff. Well, so I don't know.
I think for me, I got to remember that I kind of like suffered radical conservatism on two fronts. I had Brexit for a start, and Boris Johnson is now a dominant power in the in the United Kingdom government, and I had to put up with 4 years of Donald Trump in this country as well. So I guess for me, it's just kind of like I'm on a very heightened state of alert, because eventually I got to go home sometime, but I'm scared of going back to my home country because I've already seen what could have happened with a man who really hates trans people, and that was with Donald Trump. So that's put me in a very heightened sense of alert. Personally, for myself, and I don't have family. My family disowned me a long time ago.
Mhm.
So if I go there, I've got no one to turn to. So that it's policies kind of really affects me a lot, which is why I keep a very close eye on what's going on at home and what's going on in the states around America right now, because I'm scared. I'll be honest, and I'm not crying. I'm my best not to cry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm literally scared as to what's waiting for me in the near future. Because either way, it's dangerous, and it's gone to the point that even a charity that helps trans people emigrate are literally looking at the UK right now as a potential charity to help trans people leave the UK.
Yeah,
It's gotten to that point. So I apologize. It got really dark.
Oh no, you're totally good. Yeah, I feel like my perspective is, I think being from a place in the States that doesn't have as much money, and I feel like it's been so equally both parties really just not caring about the poor there, where like there's been a lot of homelessness, and my dad passed out homelessness probably like 5 years ago. But I feel like in so many parts of the United States, it's really truly equally both parties just don't really care about people who are on the streets, don't really want to have a solution to it. And I feel like so much of that is just like the overwhelming thing in this country, where it's great if the Democrats are having a trans person run or have a trans person in the cabinet. But I feel like when you're not caring about the homeless and not caring about like all these systematic issues, that I feel like, especially in the United States, I don't feel like either party genuinely cares.
Well, especially
that it's just like perpetuating this, that's like, oh well, we're pro trans and gay, but there's like both non-trans and trans people homeless all over the city,
on the streets right now. I mean,
like I'm in SF, so it's all over.
Especially in liberal states, I've noticed. I mean, for as much as the Democrats say that they, that they're for all these policies. In fact, I'm not saying that Republican states are any better, but Democratic states really have no excuse for the fact that they campaign on these issues and then literally just make the issue worse.
Because it's all built on a broken system that no one wants to actually fix. Because the true cause of all this stuff is capitalism, and you have to try to unpack all of that, and income inequality. And especially here in the Bay, like we have like homeless encampments that they classify on the same level as like in India and in Mexico, and like that are like so vast and have all these issues with them. But then there's also billionaires with, high-rise condos right next to it. And it's just like
famous transgender people with their with their airport hangar telling us that their pilot doesn't want to see homeless people on the street. I'm not mentioning names, Caitlin.
She was also named in the manifesto, which is hilarious because you don't think Caitlyn Jenner has ties to the police there. And I'm assuming there's probably legal action taken.
I heard about that, because the litigious laws are very, in fact, terroristic threats, I believe, is the term, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, there's a hate crime one because she threatened to lynch Fallon Fox, who is a Black woman. And you can't do that in the United States. There's like straight up anti-lynching laws.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are quite privileged. We're white trans women. Trans wise, our privilege isn't as high as as men are. But you and I both recognize that as white, as white trans women, we're a lot more privileged than our Black sisters right now.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, I've been able to make a career off being a conventionally attractive white girl. Like, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this activism if that wasn't the fact, because these men would have had to deal with me then. I feel like that's my trick, where I'm like, you think I'm attractive, so you're gonna buy my porn, but you have to think about all the hard things you don't want to.
Because I was kind of like pointing it out the other day. Some guy said something pretty racist and didn't know it was racist. So I told him, and he took it seriously from me. But then I asked him how many black people told him this was racist, and apparently it was quite a few people. So what horrified me was that it was me, the white girl, who told this person this was racist, and he accepted it, but he didn't accept it from the people it was offending in the first place. So so why can't they accept that when we say something's transphobic? I get, I'm getting straight people telling straight people that they're being transphobic, and they're accepting it more from the straight people than they are from us. Have you noticed that behavior?
Well, I lived in Oakland, which is it's a pretty hard place. So if you say racist stuff, that just doesn't fly there. So you don't really have to
Oakland. I'm
yeah, it's a interesting place, but they definitely don't deal with any of that stuff. Oakland's a birthplace of the Black Panthers and just like a lot of revolutionary.
And Nevada is a very mixed bag when it comes to that
I've
thing.
Spent much time in Vegas.
So you've seen all the crazy here then.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's actually super chill during the pandemic. I went there I think like 2 months ago and just went in the middle of the week. It was one of the best experiences. So chill. There was like no one there.
Oh yeah. Have you ever been to the AVN here then? The awards?
Yeah. I have 7 times. Yeah. It's kind of a usual thing. So many just great experiences at AVN. My partner and I got on stage with Cardi B 3 years ago. That was really good. We saw Lil Wayne. We saw Doja Cat performed the last AVN. So
wow, you're
really great experience.
Girl. You're a very busy girl. So
yeah, the pandemic slowed it down a little bit, which is probably for the best.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a frustrating year for me, writing wise and performance wise, but but now it's going to from what I've been seeing, it's going to get very chaotic for those of us in the industry, because people are going to catch up on projects that they're 2 years behind on now. So I don't know how that affects the porn industry, but it certainly affects the film industry.
Yeah, I think it's a weird point to be for me, I feel like, because this has been the craziest last month, and before this last month, basically nothing was happening. So I'm just kind of ready to get back to normal.
So how does it feel to be back in the limelight, especially given the controversy?
It's a lot. It's been good though. I think particularly because it's very obviously only one place that really cares about the BBC thing. Like no one in the United States really cares about it. No one in Europe, to my knowledge, has really cared about it. I've never had anyone. Yeah, any of my friends from the United States hit me up about it. Really, it's always just been people in the UK. But winning an award was cool.
Yeah, I'm
kind of weird to be like, everything's going right. And it's the middle of a pandemic. I just needed the world to shut down for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to keep the BBC thing down to a minimum, because it's such a, I mean, it's important, but it's such old news now. I think, now we just got to be aware that this is going on. So I was more interested in your career than I am in the countless questions you probably had over Lily Cade. You're probably sick to death of hearing that name at this point.
See, you're catching me at the end of this whole cycle. So
yeah,
it was the first week I probably did 5 interviews about it. So now it's like you have some time for it to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, that's all I wanted with you today. I mean, obviously I had to bring it up, but that's all I wanted was to really discuss your career and your activism, because that's one thing that really disappoints me about a lot of the interviews you have. There was so little spoken about your activism, and yet it's so out there. And I think it's important that people understand where it is you come from and what it is you want to change.
Thank you for sharing all that and getting all that out. I feel like most people just don't know much about porn, so they just like have these treetops ideas of everything.
Yes.
So I think that's most things, though. I think that's probably in film, most people only get the treetops of that. I'm assuming probably with athletes, they probably only get the part. So I can totally understand
and the background and private lives, and is such a different story to their public life. So Thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.